This is day 2 of our vacation in Seoul. I came across some pics that I forgot to include with day 1, so I added them here. While we're at the Coex Mall, we had naengmyeon, which is a Korean cold noodle dish, and some Korean kimchi dumplings called kimchi mandu. The table we sat at was a shoes-off table, where we took our shoes off just prior to entering the table area and sat on cushions on the floor. For those that didn't know, the general practice in Korea is that if you enter someone's home or an establishment, be prepared to take your shoes off at the door. A telltale sign is if the entrance area is a step lower than the rest of the establishment, be prepared to take your shoes off. And when in doubt, just look around to see what others are doing. As mentioned in the day 1 video, we walked around the Gangnam area and had street food for dinner. While walking around, we came across this chicken and chips place that apparently served premium potato shrimp fish. We weren't exactly sure what a potato shrimp fish was, so premium or not, we kept walking in search of dinner. To start off our second day in Seoul, I went down to the nearby coffee shop and bakery to pick up some Korean honey bread for breakfast. This image is from the web since I didn't take an actual photo of it. On the way down to the bakery, I had a moment to analyze this warning label on the inside of the elevator of our studio apartment building. I'm confused as to whether it's telling me that I shouldn't lean on the door, or the bottom of the door will open and I'll fall down the shaft and my head will explode into a ball of fire, or is it 2 different warnings? 1, don't lean on the door, and 2, don't jump into an open elevator shaft, or I will surely fall on my head and it will explode into a ball of fire. Regardless though, no high fives. Speaking of elevators, we learned a neat concept regarding elevators in Seoul that the US really needs to adopt. If you accidentally push the wrong floor, or there's that kid that decided to push all the buttons on the way down, you can push those buttons again to cancel that floor. I mean, how hard can that be to do in the US? Here's another cool concept. While waiting for the honey bread order for breakfast, I was given this pager. Why hasn't the US adopted this? We get these little coaster pagers while waiting for a table at some restaurants, but we don't really use them as coasters. Why not put a screen on them and play ads or commercials on the unit while people are waiting? They're pretty much forced to watch and listen to it anyways, or at least display the menu and show pictures of the food. Since I didn't get footage of the actual subway area on day 1, I remembered to get some this time. Here we're walking down the steps of exit number 12 of the Gangnam Station. And we're still walking. Almost there. You know, when we get to the bottom of these stairs every day, we're quickly reminded that we have to climb these stairs back up after a long day of walking all over Seoul. Imagine if this was your daily commute carrying groceries and other items. I most likely forgot to record the subway area on day 1 because as we walked into the subway area, we were amazed at how many shops and restaurants there were. It's like a mini mall. Granted, not all the stations are like this, just the busier inner city ones, such as this one. And more stairs. Today's first stop is the Namdaemun Market, and we get there by taking line 2 from the Gangnam Station to the Sadong Station, then transfer to line 4 and take it to the Hoyeon Station, exit number 5. You'll notice it's not busy here because it's just after the morning rush hour. Our mistake was staying in Gangnam area because we learned very quickly to not be in the Gangnam Station during rush hour since it's one of the busiest stations in Seoul. Underground, we noticed most of the subway stations had these storage units stocked with emergency gear, including breathing tanks and masks. My first thought was that there's no way there's enough gear for the amount of people that would normally be down here during rush hour. One of my first lessons about the subways here is that you have to be aggressive, otherwise you get pushed around and you don't get to where you need to be. Monitors above shows the status of the train, and a welcoming chime sounds as it arrives.
반복에는 열차가 들어오고 있습니다. 승객 여러분께서도 안전하게 승차하시기 바랍니다. The train for Dangoge is approaching.
Jaden Smith's brother?
Son.
Oh, I wonder, their names are Sam.
As we exited the subway, we were immediately dropped into the Namdaemun Market.
완성도로 나만의 스타일을 만들어보세요.
This market is popular with tourists and locals since it's the largest traditional market in Korea, and it's said to have over 10,000 stores and kiosks. You can find relatively inexpensive household items, kitchenware, and clothing. One thing that I wish it had more of was souvenir shops. Koreans don't joke around with street food. Everything looked amazing. One thing I had to get used to was that food was just sitting out, whether it was raw or cooked. And yet thousands here eat food this way and they're fine. Try to do this in the States and a lot of people will probably get sick. Kind of makes you wonder what's really in our food here in the States. Yeah. Just outside the Namdaemun Market is the Namdaemun Gate, also known as the South Great Gate. This was one of the 8 gates in the fortress wall of Seoul which surrounded the city during the Joseon dynasty. We were puzzled as to why there was such a huge crowd to see this. Apparently, back in 2008, the wooden pagoda on top of the gate was set on fire by an arsonist. Restoration began in 2010, and the grand reopening was on May 4th of 2013. Coincidentally, we were there on May 5th, the day after the grand reopening. So, prior to visiting Seoul, I was following Simon and Martina on their eatyourkimchi.com site. I'll talk more about them in the upcoming videos. Anyways, they were teachers from Canada living in Seoul at the time, and during one of their food adventures, they described Hoddeok. It's a Korean fried filled pancake. It's somewhat seasonal and usually only served during the cooler months. But we happened upon a vendor that was making some, so we had to get in a long line to get some. And it was well worth the wait. This was picture-worthy since I grew up on Spam and still love it. It's considered a luxury meat item in Seoul. After snacking on some Hoddeok, we started making our way back to the subway. Our next and last stop for the day is Namsan Park and the North Seoul Tower, also known as Namsan Tower.
Hey, do you know Namsan Tower?
Where is Namsan Tower? There is Namsan Tower!
To get to Namsan Tower, we got back on line 4 from Namdaemun Market and took it to the Myeongdong station and took exit number 4. We then walked straight out of the exit to the Hoyeon intersection and took the Namsan escalator to get to the cable car, which begins around Namsan Tunnel number 3.
내가 제일 잘 나가. 내가 제일 잘 나가. 내가 제일 잘 나가. 내가 제일 잘 나가. 제일 잘 나가.